as the penny dropped. Ex-students and teachers gathered from far and near. Many are still living in the area. Some left ages ago and came from interstate. They travelled from Canberra, Melbourne, Brisbane, Tasmania. Mrs. Eileen Gash, who left Raymond Terrace 42 years ago, travelled from New Zealand. The celebrations were to commemorate the 100th birthday of the old school hall at Raymond Terrace, the first building on the site. The hall was overflowing for the cutting of the cake, shared by the oldest and youngest pupils. Mrs. Amy Osborne and Mr. Ernie Smith are both in their 90s. The memories poured back for many of the former pupils who will continue the celebrations tonight.
It's just terrific. You can't imagine it until you get here, and you're overwhelmed with the feeling of, the happy times you did have at school.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people there. Yeah. Hadn't seen them for years. Don't know a lot by sight, but looking at their names, reminds you who they are. Yeah. Very nice.
14 local media representatives joined this morning's inaugural flight to Melbourne from Williamtown. The flights will operate on Tuesdays and Thursdays. This means the service will not clash with Ansett flights to Brisbane and Melbourne, providing the local traveller with greater flexibility. TAA will use 98-seater DC-9 jet aircraft, with up to half the seats being allocated to Newcastle passengers. The airline ended its Fokker Friendship service to Newcastle in 1981, claiming it was no longer economical. But State Manager Ken MacDonald says the new service is here to stay.
I have no doubt it will be a long term. The way we've worked it out, we originate the aeroplane in Brisbane, it goes through to Melbourne, and in the reverse direction, Melbourne, Williamtown, Brisbane. And the viability will be dictated by the originating passengers through from Melbourne to Brisbane, or in the return, Brisbane to Melbourne.
Will there always be spaces on that flight for Newcastle passengers?
We've taken care of that.
The economy return airfare to Melbourne is $181, with a standby one-way fare costing $112. The flight leaves Williamtown at 10 to 9 in the morning for Melbourne and returns at about 3 in the afternoon. The service then continues north to Brisbane.
The research findings announced at a press conference at Newcastle University today confirm the medical suspicion that our environment and our lifestyle can affect how well we fight off disease. It is possible that spending time in a doctor's surgery could have as much helpful effect subconsciously as taking drugs does physically. Professor King and Dr. Husband have confirmed that rats can be conditioned subconsciously to lower their immunity. While in the past this has involved the use of harmful drugs, the researchers have achieved this using a safe drug, a significant step. This could help humans lessen the chance of rejecting a transplanted organ or skin graft.
Well, our next goal is to show that in addition to immunosuppression, we can also condition immunoenhancement.
Enhancing the immune system by conditioning would help to fight cancer, lupus and possibly AIDS. The researchers have begun trying to do this in rats, but caution that a widespread application to humans is a long way off.
At a very practical level, I think there's scope now to start applying these procedures in clinical situations.
Scott's subjects for this exhibition are his wife and his daughter, but water, whether it be in a pool or the ocean, has captivated him.
I've always had a fascination for water since I was a little kid. We used to spend a lot of time at the beach, and we go away a lot. And both our parents live on the coast in Queensland. We spend a fair bit of time in the surf and around the surf.
Scott is intrigued by the way the sun plays on the surface of the water, forming patterns. He has specialised in the airbrush and is travelling throughout Queensland giving seminars on the technique. He says it creates softer, more tranquil images in his work.
I like sort of setting myself a tough goal and trying to achieve it. And I think with a lot of the paintings here that I have, I'm very happy with the end results.
Well, it's not that serious. It will be another couple of weeks out of the game, but obviously I couldn't get through yesterday's medical, and it's sort of hard sitting on the sideline, but it is on the mend.
Obviously that's a big disappointment, missing the test on Saturday.
Well, it is. I've been involved in the last 6 winning tests, and I was very keen to be up there again this weekend, but there's something that you can't rush, and obviously I've got a premiership to win with Parramatta, and that's the first priority.
Still touching on the test scene, Peter, I suppose there's a lot of pressure on the current Kangaroos now, the test players, to maintain that winning streak, which is an envy, really.
Certainly it is, yes. It's once you get to win a few games on the trot, people start expecting you to win, and the New Zealand side, the current New Zealand side, is probably the best they've fielded for a long time, so they'll certainly feel the pressure up there, but it's a good enough side to come through.
A name synonymous with rugby league in Australia, that of sports medicine man Alf Richards, explained that players like Tyson Sterling had to be under a fitness cloud because of the length of the season.
Well, it's having a big effect on them because somebody interviewed me early in the season, about halfway through the first round, as to how long players were going to last and whether the effect of the Kangaroo Tour would finish up affecting these players as the season went on. And I said, well, it wouldn't at the present time, but as the season did go on, as somebody suggested, that yes, it's going to cause a little bit of a problem, because people want to see these players, particularly the Kangaroos that went away. They want to see these players play in the latter half of the season, because that's where it's starting to tell now the people who's going to make the 5. And when we have players injured that are not able to play, well, they're missing out on a lot of the top players that played in the Kangaroo Tour. And
was a chance for the Falcons to give each other a pat on the back for their efforts throughout the year. Although the team failed to make the final playoff, the players' enthusiasm hasn't waned. The big man of the court, George Morrow, took out 2 of the major prizes. He was voted the most valuable player of the year and was also awarded the trophy for the leading rebounder. And here's George in full flight.
Tries, the shot doesn't go in. Morrow went high and just pulled it down to him. Turns it up the court now. Damien Keogh. They go high, the big men. There's the big man, Utov. Missed with that shot, and Morrow came away with the rebound.
The Best Defence Player award went to Ian Rebilliard, and Mike Johnson took out the Most Improved Player title. The Kern Falcons say they are confident things will look up in the coming season. And with Kern Constructions continuing to financially back the team for another 3 years, the officials say they can now concentrate on improving the play. These 3 students from St Anne's High School at Adamstown have been selected as one of 40 groups to present their submission at the Youth Forum this weekend. They were given 4 subjects to choose from: education, peer group pressure, unemployment and the legal system. The girls chose youth and the legal system. They say it's an area most people tend to steer away from because they believe if a person commits a crime, irrespective of their age or criminal experience, they should be jailed. But Michelle Campbell, Robin Kennelly and Margaret Hagan say there should be an alternative.
We had to submit an outline of a presentation on the legal system, and through this we want to highlight how inadequate the legal system is so far as where youth are concerned, and we hope to show that through this there should be alternatives to jail for youth, and we're presenting this through the way of a mock trial.
What alternatives do you see?
Hopefully a rehabilitation centre aimed mainly at youth, and where the youth can be punished for his crime but also rehabilitated and helped with any problems that they might have, and we feel that this is not going on in the jails today.
Good morning, everybody. Well, just a reminder to you that the Wyong race meeting set down for today has been postponed due to the inclement conditions. Star New Zealand gallopers Prince Majestic and My Axeman have fared favourably in the barrier draw for Saturday's $175,000 4X Cup at Brisbane's Doomben Racecourse. At a special barrier draw function in the Doomben Grandstand yesterday, Prince Majestic drew 6 and My Axeman drew 3. Prince Majestic is currently the 3-1 favourite for Queensland's richest horse race. My Axeman is second favourite at 6-1. Both horses are expected to dominate the finish of the 2200 metre event. Horses which have drawn outside alleys in the Cup include Bound to Honour in 18, Triumphal March 15, Noble Comment 19, WM 14 and Lancelotto 17. Unless the rain clears, there is doubts about the Davis Cup quarter-final between Australia and Romania being able to start tomorrow. The Milton Courts in Brisbane presented a dismal scene yesterday, and time is running out to have the courts playable.
Queensland Lawn Tennis Association officials were keeping a watchful eye on the weather today, hoping that the rain would clear to give the courts an opportunity to dry before Friday. The courts have been covered since the rain started yesterday, and the pools of water lying on top of the covers raises doubts about the amount which has seeped through to the surface. Curator John Hume is hopeful that will only present minor problems.
There is some water getting underneath the end of the covers, but for the middle we can't tell yet until the covers are lifted themselves.
Do you expect there to be any major problem area when the covers do come off?
We don't expect a major problem, but we suspect there might be a minor problem, but we don't know yet.
Meanwhile, the Australian side were presented with their team tracksuits this morning by the Australian Davis Cup sponsor, BP. Team captain Neil Fraser is sorry that Brisbane doesn't have indoor tennis facilities for his side to practice, but believes that the heavy schedule of matches in recent weeks will overcome the missed practice time. Like the curator, Fraser is concerned about the court surface, but is still hopeful that clearing weather will have the courts in good condition for the opening singles.
The Black Diamond team, which is the Newcastle Australian Rules Football League representative team, travel to the South Coast this weekend for a representative fixture. And this is the side. They're coached by David Manson and reading from the forward line, Harrison, Kidd, Martin, half forward line, Woodhams, War, Tanner, the centre line, Vanell, Jacobs, Victor, the half back line, Morass, Higgins and Jansen, who is the captain of the side, and the back line is Orr, Dunn and Ferguson. The followers are Isaacs, Macy and McCormick, and the reserves Dunn, Dill, Phillips and Edwards. And now with a report on last night's matches in the Australian Schoolboys Rugby League Championships being played at Harker Oval, here's Janelle Provost.
The New South Wales Combined High Schools Rugby League team gave the Queenslanders a thrashing at Harker Oval last night, winning the second test in the two-match series 58-0. By half-time, the scene had already been set with the score at 26-0. Some spectacular tries were scored as the New South Welshmen burst through the Queensland State Secondary School's defence, leaving no doubt about their determination to win. Try scorers included Ian Naden, Jason Moon and Stephen Robinson. This was the scene at the Port Waratah coal loader last night. Trucks were arriving at the loader at the rate of one every minute, causing a pile-up of trucks eager to provide a stockpile of coal. The trucks are being used to transport the coal because of a statewide train driver strike. The strike began 8 days ago after the State Rail Authority's decision to cut XPT cabin crews from 2 to 1 man, abolishing the observer's position. Some officials remain sceptical as to whether the men will return to work after talks today, but until the dispute is resolved, coal will continue to be transported to the Port of Newcastle by road.
FIA official Mr John Lee has levelled certain allegations following the death of a 35-year-old labourer, Wally Karosky, who died as a result of burns he received when he was splashed with molten metal in the casting section of the plant.
The allegations are that a chap was placed in a position to do a particular job which could have been regarded as unsafe.
Why is that?
Well, it is a new operation. I understand that what was happening last night was on a trial basis. The company is moving its steelmaking operations from they're moving to a sliding gate nozzle from that of a stopper nozzle. And last night they were experimenting on the sliding gate nozzle, and apparently some malfunction has taken place. It hasn't.
That sliding gate nozzle, which the BHP would not allow us to photograph, is the thing the union has banned when it is used on a certain type of mould, called the bottom pour mould. The ban will not prevent the company from producing steel, but it will lead to a full inquiry.
Secretary of the Trades Hall Council, Mr Peter Barrack, says the workers from Varley Engineering, Carrington Slipways and the State Dockyard have accepted the radical changes because they realise that the future lies in cooperation within the industry.
I think that they recognise that traditional practices and traditional approaches to work in the dockyard hasn't worked. It's brought them to a position where they're at now, plus other factors. And they recognise that unless they're prepared to accept some dramatic proposal, some dramatic change, some application to implementing those changes, then the State Dockyard has a very limited future.
What are the changes that you've proposed?
Some of the proposals are the integration of the workforce between the yards, the adoption of a work arrangement by which this interchangeability we'll see a rationalisation within the yards. We'll see cooperation between the managements and really put the shipbuilding, ship repair industry in a position in Newcastle where they're not cutting each other's throats, but where they've got the opportunity to go out into the marketplace and seek to, where possible, to attract as much work to Newcastle. The other thing, of course, is a common industry agreement which we'll believe will assist this process.
Now, you haven't spoken to management yet. Is there any indication of how they'll react to these changes?
We've had indications following some input to the mini-summit back in May that managements are prepared to discuss these matters, that they are prepared to look at cooperation and they are prepared to sit down with the unions on the basis of some of the proposals that we're putting forward and see where we can come to agreement, see where we can reach some common ground so that we can ultimately go back to the workforce of the combined yards to take these propositions down to them, get acceptance to them, and we feel we'll be in a far stronger position then to go to governments and bargain with them for investment in the shipbuilding industry in this town.
The accident happened shortly after 8:25 this morning on Lookout Road opposite Rankin Park Hospital. 5 cars travelling south collided end to end, spraying glass and debris across the road. Police say 3 people suffered minor injuries in the pile-up. 1 was taken to the Mater Hospital and 2 others were taken to Wallsend Hospital. The accident blocked 1 lane of the road for about half an hour, adding to the confusion of morning traffic.